How you doing, everyone? I'm Jamie, and here we are for Draftstars Friday night daily fantasy. We've got two games here. We've got the Brisbane Broncos up against the Sydney Roosters and the New Zealand Warriors up against the North Queensland Cowboys, my great team. But we're going to start here with the outside backs, and there's a few guys to potentially select in this one here. If you're going up and spending a fair bit of cash, you'd expect the Roosters to win this one fairly comfortably. They're starting to get a little bit better, so I think you can put a little bit of stock into James Tedesco. Hasn't scored incredibly well, and he's definitely due for a big game. We saw what happened with Ryan Papenhuyzen last week, and I think Teddy's due for one of those games. We saw Joey Manu break out last week and score really well, and I think Teddy is due for one of those games. But if you want to avoid that 21,000 price tag, you can definitely choose someone a little bit cheaper, which we can speak about in here. I think Reece Walsh is still a great option. He's averaging 49.7 across the three games, and they come up against the Cowboys, who had a bit of a rough one last week. They're playing fairly well overall, but I think this game will be pretty close, and I think it's time for Reece Walsh to have a nice try. So they're the two guys that are more expensive price I think could do well for your squad. If you're going a bit lighter here, we can go Joey Manu, and he had an awesome game last week. 2 tries, 2 try assists. Still only got 57.7, and this is what can happen with centers if they're not getting massive run meters, for example. You're not getting the tackles that you would if you're in the middle, and you're relying a lot on the attacking stats. So that's with Joey there, but obviously a cheaper price point. You don't need to get as much out of him for him to do awesome in your side. So he becomes a good option as well. I'm probably going to leave the centers for the Broncos this week with them coming up against the Roosters. I just think they're not going to score as well, and Katoni's really been struggling. But if we're going to go a little bit lighter here, I'd be going for someone like Jesse Arthurs up against the Cowboys. So on the right side with Sean Johnson, you saw what happened in Johnson's first game back with a 51.1 and 2 tries. So I think he's has a great opportunity to score tries again and really dominate this game at that cheap price point of $10,500. One a little bit cheaper, I think, that could do solidly as well in this game is Val Holmes. So he's had, he's going to be more of that boom or bust player, coming off an 18 last week, a 77 the week before. He definitely has that opportunity to do really well, but I wouldn't bank on it, especially. If you want to go just a slight bit more expensive, actually, would be Daniel Tupou coming up against the Broncos. He's been super consistent over the last 3 weeks. I'm pretty sure he could be able to get a try in this game and score somewhere in that 40 plus again. So he's probably the best option out of all these guys this week, which is very interesting and not someone that we usually select in the fantasy world, but he's just such a solid player. He gets close to 200 meters run every game. He gets the tries. He gets the odd try assist with a bat back as well. So he's been great, and I think he's a great option this week against the Brisbane Broncos. He's up against Selwyn Cobbo, so that's a big one here. So he's had a few errors, across the first bunch of games. I think Tupou can capitalize on that. If we're going to the halves and the hooking position, Reynolds has been stock solid the whole time. 62 last week, 58 and 58 across the first 3 games for him. At 19,500, I think he's a great pickup for any one side. If we're going to go a little bit lighter, there's not too many options, I don't think, at the moment in this game. But someone like Tom Dearden, I think at 17,290, has been really, really good. And he comes up against the Warriors, who aren't going to be a superstar team. The Cowboys got beat up pretty bad last week, and he's still got 46. So I think you can get somewhere close to a 45 to 55 for Tommy. Against the Warriors there, he's been really, really good. But just be aware, he has been great, so there maybe is an opportunity for him to slow down on the try assist, for example, and you might want to fade him this week. So he's definitely got the pros and the cons at a pretty expensive price point. A little bit lighter in the price there at 16,100, I think, is Ruben Cotter. He's been really, really good over his first 2 games, a 61 and a 52 there. So if he can continue getting minutes around that 50 to 60, then he could get you around that 50 points. His PPM's awesome, and I think he's a great opportunity. He's a great guy to put into your side. It's a very good opportunity to do really, really well for your team. So that's, Ruben Cotter there. And the only one at a cheaper price point that I thought I'd mention as well would be Billy Walters. So he gets a 6 roll this week. We saw what he did in round 1, getting a 59.8. And then from there he's been off the bench. So 38.8 and a really, really good effort in 25 minutes in round 2, and then 21 and a 16. So he played 60 minutes last week, coming in the 6th role, and that's the main worry. That next to Reynolds, how much of a big effort does he get in the squad to get a lot of running, to get a few kicks as well. So just something to worry a little bit about. But if you needed someone at that cheap price point, then Billy Walters could be your man. Moving to the forwards, and there's only a few guys that I'd be looking to select in this one. Adam Fanua-Blake's there, and we're going to leave him out because he looks like he's unlikely to play. Payne Haas, so we're not exactly sure at this point when I'm making this video if he's going to be named or not, if his suspension is going to start this week. So he's going to be suspended for 1 to 2 weeks. So if he plays this week, he's going to get big minutes and he'll do well. And I think you need to have him in your side. But if he's ruled out, then you have these other options. And I'd probably go to a Josh Curran if Payne Haas is out and you wanted to spend that money a little bit extra. Obviously, Taumalolo played really well last week as well. But I think you can go for Curran, who's a little bit more consistent than you would for Taumalolo. But if we're looking down a little bit lighter here, I think someone like Tom Gilbert at 13,700, who has had the on and off kind of game. He had a decent game, a great game in round 1, a decent game in round 3, and then 2 and 4 weren't great for him. So I think he has that boom or bust potential at 13,700 if you're looking for that. Someone a little bit cheaper, Satili Tupanua at 12,580. He's been doing really, really well for Roosters in general, fairly consistent without getting those tries. So I think it's an opportunity for him against the Broncos to get a little meat pie there and get over the stripe for you. And at 12,500, I think he can do a great job for your side. The one I'd say is pretty close to a must-have this week will be Kobe Hetherington. So he comes into the 13 role for Pat Carrigan, who is out for 4 to 6 weeks there. And Kobe's such a workhorse. You see in these games here, last week was 27 in 25 minutes, 44 in 37 minutes. He's at a 33 in about 30 minutes, in 34 minutes as well in those first 3 games. And I think for Kobe, with that extra 20 to 30 minutes that he's going to get, I think he can score somewhere around the 50 mark and be an absolute steal at 10,900. So that's all I've got for you guys in this video. I hope that you can create your team around those players, whether you're just going to go the single games, there's 2 separate ones there worth a little bit more money, or you can go the joint one here as well. This one's probably a little bit more challenging in terms of trying to work out, where do I spend the money, where do I put the, who do I put in the flex and go with that. But other than that, I hope you really enjoyed this video. You got a lot out of it, and good luck to you if you're playing on this Friday night. Have a good weekend, guys. See you later.